how are they allowed to repeatedly take black children into their homes, specifically black children? Welcome to Racist of the Week. My name is Reese Waters. Now, typically, this is where we expose the stupidity and hypocrisy of discrimination in hopes we could build a more perfect union and also laugh. But today is a little bit different because ain't nothing funny about this. As usual, I would like to thank today's sponsor, Racism, and don't forget to like and subscribe to the page, and definitely leave me any possible suggestions for nominees in the comments. Today's nominees: Donald Ray Lantz and Jeanne Whitefeather are facing multiple charges after being accused of enslaving their adopted black children, who were found living in a locked barn. The couple, residing near Charleston, pleaded not guilty to the charges after the children were discovered in a dilapidated shed, allegedly following forced labor on the surrounding farmland. The judge overseeing the case stated that Lantz and Whitefeather targeted their 5 children aged 16, 14, 11, 9, and 6, specifically because of their race, essentially using them as slaves. According to the original arrest report from October, the 2 oldest children were confined to a squalid 20 by 14 shed without lights, food, or running water, and were monitored by a camera positioned in the top left corner of the room. During a wellness check, the children were found wearing dirty clothes with sores on their feet, and the shed had no means of being opened from the inside. Now I'm gonna have to stop us right here because this is a case where this couple has repeatedly adopted black children, and I understand that cross-racial adoption is a thing and can lead to some great results in some cases. But in this case, I have to ask, what was the explanation for this white couple in West Virginia repeatedly adopting black children? I'm not saying it's not possible for them to have good intentions, but for them to have good intentions, they would either have to have a deep, abiding appreciation and love for black culture, or they would have to have a deep space of empathy for the black condition in America or Pan-Africa and want to do their part to make it better. I find it hard, no, impossible to believe that this couple that treated these children this way convinced you that either of those things was true. There's no way they convinced you that either they were really down with the cause or really down with the culture. And without either of those two things, how are they allowed to repeatedly take black children into their homes, specifically black children? Now, the shed was situated on the couple's 5-acre property in Sissonville, West Virginia, valued at $295,000. They also own an 80-acre property in Tonasket, Washington, which they sold for $725,000 following their arrest in October. Whitefeather described the shed as a, quote, teenage clubhouse and denied that the children were held against their will, asserting that the children who were homeschooled actually liked the shed. However, the teenage girl told deputies they had been locked inside for approximately 12 hours and were last given food at 6 a.m. And at this point, I'm also going to need a public questioning, not only of them, but of loved ones. You want to tell me that a shed that had been locked from the inside, that they claim they were in for 12 hours and were last given food at 6 a.m. was a teenage clubhouse? I'm going to need I want these people to answer for these things publicly. Also, I want their loved ones and anybody around them to have to answer for these questions publicly, because I already asked how they were allowed to take black children into their home repeatedly. If you are their brother, sister, uncle, cousin, mama, whatever the case may be, and you see them repeatedly taking black children home, and even if they're able to hide their racism, the fact that they clearly don't seem down with the cause of the culture, but yet seem to be hoarding black children wasn't problematic to you. I need answers. Inside the shed, the children were forced to sleep on a hard concrete floor with only a small RV porta potty available and no running water. Doesn't sound like any teenage clubhouse I've ever been to or heard of. The criminal complaint emphasized the danger, stating that if there had been a medical emergency or fire, the children would have been unable to escape to safety. Court documents also revealed neighbors reported the children were made to perform farm labor and were not permitted inside the main house. Now, this is where I somewhat absolve the neighbors, because apparently they had called and complained of potential issues and things being problematic inside that household. Why absolutely nothing was done. Why absolutely nothing was done. What needed to happen? What needed to happen in order for the neighbors' complaints to be taken seriously? This is just another in a litany of evidence that we have on how black suffering is treated in this country. But yes, by all means, I'm sure help is on the way with Project 2025 turning their attention to DEI. Now, 3 hours after the initial discovery, deputies found a 9-year-old girl in a loft inside the family's locked main house. Lantz returned home with the 11-year-old boy, while Whitefeather surrendered their 6-year-old daughter to authorities who've been staying with friends from the couple's church. Yeah, the couple's church. Good to know that they were getting their church appearances in. The children were found with various health issues, and photos taken by Whitefeather's brother a week after the arrests documented their poor condition. I need to know the circumstances that Whitefeather's brother took these photos. Were these photos taken to document the condition, or were these photos taken just for no reason and then seized? I also have questions about the church people who apparently were keeping these children and had absolutely nothing to say about their condition. Yeah, sounds real close to Christ. Their bond was increased to $500,000 each, up from the initial $200,000 due to the severity of the charges. The latest indictment alleges that the couple committed human rights violations by forcing their children into hard labor because of their race. Kanawha County Circuit Judge Mary Claire Akers, who presided over the case, noted that this was the first case of its kind she had encountered in her career and deemed the original bond insufficient given the severity of the crimes. She stated, along with human and neglect with serious risk of bodily injuries or death, I don't find the bond to be sufficient, and credit to that judge for taking that in her own hands. Prosecutors previously raised concerns that the couple's joint $400,000 bond posted in February might have been funded by their alleged activities. Kanawha County Assistant Prosecuting Attorney Christopher Krivoniak reported that the couple, who had previously claimed to have no assets or income, sold their 80-acre ranch in Tonasket, Washington for $725,000 in February, and 3 days later, Whitefeather's brother, the one who took the photos, posted two $200,000 bonds to secure their release. Subsequently, on March 28th, they sold their home in Sissonville for $295,000. Despite whether the money was obtained legally, prosecutors argued it was initially intended for. So one thing I take from this is that these people have money. As much as we point the finger and talk about how racism thrives in this kind of low income, low information environment, these are people that actually had money and access to assets. They had goods. I also need to bring the brother in. I need to bring the brother in because either you're telling me that you had no knowledge or understanding of what was going on, but now, which I find hard to believe, as I mentioned, these people repeatedly taking in black children. You're either telling me you had no knowledge of what was going on, you received all this new information of the charges, and you still want to proclaim their innocence, or you're complicit. That's it. That's it. That's it. I need to hear from you, sir, because some things are not, oh yeah, let me go bail my kin out of jail. I'm not having my money on bailing you out of jail for this. I need to hear from them. The couple had no prior criminal complaints, by the way, in West Virginia, but complaints were made against them in May and September of last year, but deputies didn't find any wrongdoing during their visits. Let me guess how they went. Yeah, officer, I don't know what they called about, but we good folks. We good law-abiding folks, and so you can trust me. Wink, wink, nod, nod. They observed the children inside the home, including seeing them eating dinner on one occasion. Guess that's all it takes. CPS was also contacted by neighbor Stacy Miller, who described seeing the children engage in what appeared to be forced labor in the yard, standing in a line with their heads down. The couple's initial bond money is now held by the court, with Kravaniak suggesting it could be transferred to the children in the form of a trust fund. And I want to forget that being a suggestion. That should be a given. These kids should get their reparations now. Whitefeather's attorney, Mark Plants, argued there were two sides to the story, asserting that there was a key inside the shed and that the allegations sounded worse than the reality. However, given the evidence and severity of the charges, the couple faces a challenging legal battle. Their next court appearance is scheduled for September 9th. And I find that curious, that story about the key inside the shed. Yeah, the key inside the shed that nobody knew about until charges were filed. And now we can give it as a possible defense. I want to know what the other side is, because the best case scenario is child abuse. That's the best case scenario, is child abuse. If you are able to somehow convince me that this was not racially motivated, which sounds crazy when you're repeatedly adopting black children to kick it in Sissonville, West Virginia, okay, as a white couple, if you're somehow able to convince me this wasn't racially motivated, then you have a devastating child abuse case. That's your best case. So congratulations, Donald Ray Lantz and Jeanne K. Whitefeather. You are our racist of the week, because no, I do not believe that. As far as I'm concerned, there is no punishment too severe for these people. As always, if you have somebody you would like to nominate, leave it in the comments. You can email me at restoutwaters@gmail.com. Be sure to subscribe to the page and make sure you get notified when the next video drops.